Okay, we are live. Good morning,
Are we
Darko.
live? Good morning. Well, are we live? No, I wanted to put a countdown timer here. Countdown timer. Yes, thank you.
Full
Okay,
words,
so
yes.
this was supposed to be a countdown timer before we show up, but
We
um,
were talking too much and then
we
we
were
missed
talking too
the
much.
countdown.
Yes, so well,
Yeah.
enjoy the blank countdown until we don't know what. Maybe something
Ooh, yeah.
happens at the
Let's
end
see
of the
what
countdown.
happens. Okay, wait. 3, 2. Isn't this when you're supposed to be quiet and be serious?
Nothing.
Good morning, or good evening,
Or
or
good evening, or whatever. Being streaming. Good. Well, actually, I think most people here are in the morning, except for Australia, if we have somebody in Australia.
yeah, we'll.
So,
Yes,
um,
good morning and good evening. If
yeah,
it's good evening, hope your Monday went well. If it's good morning, grab some more coffee and yeah, good luck. That's all I can say. This is another episode of Bean Streaming. So this is where Darko and myself build things in real time, and you can learn from how we build things and also how we make mistakes and figure out
yeah,
those mistakes, as well as dig into documentation. So the whole point of the show is to help you understand how to build and also how to learn effectively, because we've been
correct.
building things for a few years. We've gone through this process a few times. But even with that, we still have to Google things. We still have to go read the documentation. We still have to say, what is this thing? The description doesn't make sense. So what we're doing is we are building some applications, and specifically, we're now doing a session or series of events where we use the AWS CDK to build a modern app using containers. So last week we did the getting started part where we set up some of the basics and we split out the individual parts that we want to do. And we are going to continue with this for the next 2 or 3 episodes probably. And by the end of it, if all goes well, we will have a nice CI/CD pipeline that builds and deploys our application, as well as allows us to make infrastructure changes with that same or pipeline or another pipeline. We will be having an interesting discussion around that, either today or in the next session around
Exactly.
what are we
Yeah.
ultimately doing there. Cool. So I think Darko, maybe open up the code and then you can do a quick recap of
Yeah.
what we did last week for people.
To be honest, I'm trying to recall what we did last week. So, been streaming
Lots of
mistakes. Yes.
CDK.
Yeah. Also, I think my laptop is struggling. First of all, it's struggling with heat, but it's also struggling with the internet. So there might be some delay with the screen because I'm actually streaming my laptop screen from somewhere else. Hopefully that works. If it doesn't, we're gonna have to try to make it work. So actually, before I get into this, Cobus, I'm gonna actually just kind of reconnect my Wi-Fi, just so
Okay.
I am in the clear here because I am really struggling with this. I don't wanna kill the user
That's all
experience
good.
as I kill my
No,
Wi-Fi.
that's all good.
So
Let us quickly figure out. We've got that. Let me just then entertain people so long with that. So also while Darko is just sorting out his internet quickly, this repo is already available publicly. We will share the link a little bit. It is on GitHub, and the idea is that you also follow us as we go along. We want to make, like I said, the focus is making it interactive. So I think also please ask us questions as we go along or make suggestions. This is supposed to be interactive, and we want your feedback. And while it's entertaining, it should also be educational. So we get to use the education or edutainment. There we go. Sorry, I
edutainment,
haven't had
yes.
I haven't had enough coffee yet today, and I'm sorry, but I'm in charge of the dad jokes, so don't blame Darko for the naming of the series. We initially called it Streaming on the Rocks, where we had pretty much the same thing, except in the evening with some nice beverages. I had whiskey the first 2 times, and Darko went for nice G&Ts. And then we realized that we want to do it in office hours. So that's what we are doing, where we are helping people during office hours, because not everybody can attend in the evenings. So
Exactly.
let me quickly put some more info for you on the screen. If you are interested in following us on Twitter and LinkedIn, on Twitter, those are our details to follow. We normally post the things that we build and the sessions that we host there. Feel free to give us a follow and also ask us questions, send us details. The stream is also streamed to YouTube, so you can actually get to the or rewatch it at a later stage if something goes by too quickly. And the good news is, as of last week, we have access to full 1080p streaming. So the
Yes.
text should be a lot more readable, which is awesomeness. Because initially it was a little bit blurry and we had to make it so big so you can get about, I think, 40 characters per line. So
Yeah.
it made reading the code hard.
I need to just make changes to my internet configuration here because my Wi-Fi is problematic. So I'm just gonna I'm just gonna hide myself while I'll let Cobus entertain you. Maybe Cobus, maybe you can go and have a look at the GitHub page while I am,
I will.
or answer the questions. I'll be here in a second. Just gonna remove my face so you don't see me bending over.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I get to be entertaining on my own, which is often hard. Well, actually, it's not hard. It's the same as my dad jokes because nobody laughs. So it just sounds the same. So first question here of the day is: so no drinking in office hours. Not on live stream. I think some people might frown on that. You could argue we could always relabel it bean streaming. What's one of the time zones in the east where it's evening, and then pretend that it's evening. But yeah, no, not at the moment. Primarily, the reason is that then we'll just go off the rails the whole time. So let me quickly open up that repository. If you give me a second, I will get it up. GitHub. And it is Darko, Meszaros. I can't spell his surname. Is this one with or without?
It's without the Z. So
Yes,
actually,
Darko confuses me.
let me open. I'm back. I'm actually on.
Are you back?
On hardwire connection right now, so it should be much better. So let me
nice.
join it with my laptop. I don't trust Wi-Fi, so like that.
Well, he's doing that just quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a laptop that has, for some reason, doesn't get 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, so 2.4, and it struggles. So, not the best thing in the world. But I need to show off a bit. I have good speed.
Ooh. So that
yeah.
that is so mean.
It works now. Fine. It's better. Good. I think we can do it now.
Nice. Cool. Awesome.
Edmund is here. I know Mr. Edmund Sukola. Hello. Darko and not Darko, or Cobus and not Cobus.
Yes. So the joke there is last week we had a webinar series on infrastructure as code where I did 2 sessions and Darko did 2 sessions. And the sessions are very explicitly labeled with who's presenting. We both introduce ourselves. We both share our Twitter details and other social media details. And still Darko got a thank you Cobus and a Cobus question or 2. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
it's
people tend to confuse us for some reason.
Cool. Alrighty then.
One last thing, plug in USB. Is this the correct way?
Yes. And
it is. Wow, the first time.
Monday mornings are hard, especially with 4 or 5 coffees.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're gonna have a look at code first. Code first.
Yes.
So let's talk code. Last time, what we did, if I recall correctly, is we have built a pipeline, or actually we have built a semi-pipeline. So the goal here, as Cobus said in the beginning, we're trying to build a modern application that's going to be container-based, and we're going to build it through infrastructure as code and using Cloud Development Kit or CDK. So last time what we've did actually here is we've created a code commit repository, we've created a pipeline, and we created code build. That's it, nothing else. So we need to add more stuff here. So, and to make this work, so for example, we need to deploy. So the goal is that we're going to have this pipeline that's going to build our application code or build our containers, and it's going to deploy it to our ECS or Elastic Container Service cluster as a service. So that's kind of the idea. But before we build the deploy phase, we actually have to create the entire container infrastructure first. So we're going to be doing that same thing again through CDK. So if I hide this, I think Cobus and I had a bit of a discussion yesterday, or not yesterday, last time, on how are we going to actually do this. And ultimately, it's going to look good in a sense that right now it's all in a single template. Everything's going through the same thing, but we want to ultimately introduce things such as testing this template itself. Right now, we're not doing any infrastructure as code testing of the code itself. The pipeline here is purely for the application code, but we want to move that. We want to create another pipeline that's going to actually test this CDK code as well. So to make it properly architected and with all the bells and whistles, but there's still some time to that. So I think a little bit. I think we can start with doing it with ECS, right? So and this also brings me to another question here, and this might be just me doing things wrong right now, which is most likely the truth. For example, I have my code repository here and my container registry here in the same place.
Yes.
That's not good, apparently. So it's persistent storage, right? So container registry, maybe no, but maybe doesn't matter too much. But for code repositories, I would definitely keep them separate. So
Yeah.
because they are something very persistent.
Yeah, so I think this is where the first split comes in also, which helps you with that whole chicken and egg problem. Because when you want to start a new project, what you need to do is there's some base infrastructure you need. So if you think about it, you need some kind of pipeline to actually execute something, and the pipeline can't create itself because what runs it the first time, and the secondly, if you want to make modifications to the pipeline, it can't reach out and modify itself type thing. So this is where we're heading, is we'll end up with two repositories. The first one will be to create the infrastructure for projects. So we'll put the things like the repository, the actual build pipeline for that job, along with, for example, the ECR repo for it, all defined in there. Also, that's the place where you would add users to the different from the different teams to have access to those resources that you create. And then the second pipeline will be the one that actually then spins up the ECS cluster, the build jobs, well, not the build jobs, the actual all the other bits that we need for this. So that's going to be the approach. But for now, we're focusing on getting the actual app up and running, and then we take that step back. And I think we're going to go through the process of starting with it here, and then we'll show you how to move it to the other repo in one of the next episodes.
Exactly. So let's then get started with the ECS stuff. So for ECS, what do we need? We need ECR, right? Or the Elastic Container Registry. This is where we're going to be storing our containers. Then we need ECS service. Then we need the ECS task definition. And then ECS task itself. That's basically what we need to generate here. Is it task? Yeah, task. So Mr. OSP FLSA7, do you guys recommend having separate accounts for dev and prod? Absolutely.
Always, yes.
Definitely do that. Because we're going to be doing this in the same account, but absolutely separate accounts for dev and prod. Think of it this way. In a production account, nobody should ever log into, right? Your production account would be just there to serve content to your end users without anybody even having to log into the web UI. So that is definitely the case.
It's also worth having a look at, if you haven't heard about role switching, it's an awesome feature where you can set up IAM roles and policies between different accounts. So you log into one account with a set of credentials, either with the API or with the console, and then you can switch to the other account, or on the API level, just start running commands against the other the other account without having to provide a second set of credentials for it, which is super, super useful. And that's also when you start doing infrastructure as code and jumping between multiple accounts, how you should do that. I'm actually releasing some Terraform code on that. Terraform videos with code. If all goes well, I should finish up the last recordings on Thursday morning, and by Friday, the first 4 or 5 videos should be out. So definitely keep an eye on Twitter for when I release those, because I specifically look at how to do the multi-account thing.
Exactly. Also, one important thing we haven't asked, is the audio okay? We want to make sure that we are both loud and clear, or not too loud and maybe not too clear.
And also the same level of loudness. Yes. I've been told that sometimes I get too loud.
In general, or today. Okay, what I did right now, I've installed the ECR. What is it? The ECR module. So I basically installed this ECR module, a construct library for CDK by running npm install on that module. And I'm going to basically use it now inside of my code here. So if you follow last time, basically we need to import it here like that. And just do change this to ECR, AWS ECR, like that. Perfect.
And also we are definitely going to be making use of the image scanning as well as the immutable tags. Yes, we will be. Yes, we discussed this up front. We agreed, didn't we? No, we didn't. So quickly, those two features are super useful. The first one being CVE scanning. So it's literally a case of every time you push a new image to your repository, it'll run a scan for common vulnerabilities against that container, and you'll get a report saying critical, high, medium, and low ones, and info ones. And at some point, we will also add a Lambda that will process that for us, because what happens is once the scan completes, it raises an SNS event, and you can use Event Bridge to actually then send that event to a Lambda function. And then what we can do is we can decide if it sees something, for example, that's a high level of vulnerability, it can either let's say notify us, or if it's critical, we can even set it up to immediately delete that image, so that we know that we can never release a critical CVE, because you don't generally want to do that because it's an issue. And then you would see if we can add that to our build cycle, so we can then break the build if we do end up there, because it's a nice feedback loop to let us know about that. Second one we want to do is to enable tag immutability. The reason for this is that often you see people deploying with latest, and it's easy to get going, but the problem with that is, let's say you've got 5 containers up and running, and all of a sudden someone builds a new one, and there's a scaling event just after the build completes. You've now got 5 of the old latest, and now you scale up to 10, you've got 5 of the new latest, and nobody knows what is deployed where and what's going on. So rather use explicit tags when you deploy. So by enabling the immutable setting on ECR, it makes that you cannot upload a tag with the same name. So you always have to tag it properly, preferably with some kind of version number associated with the commit history. So we'll be using the hash for that, and that'll be the tag that we push.
Well, this is throwing me an error, but it should not. So the problem here is that this should be a construct, but this is a construct. Unvalidate is a protected type, but am I not doing something correctly? So looking at the documentation here.
Go back.
Is it this?
Oh, no, that is right. Yeah, sorry, I thought it was a capital missing.
No, it is right. ECR. Let me do something here. Sometimes it may be my linting that's the problem here. So if I do npm run build, is this the same thing?
Let's have a look.
Likely yes, but
I've also had this or something like this before, where additional tools that are supposed to protect you then cause some other fun issues.
Yeah, so
cool.
Property unvalid is protected, but type construct is not a class derived from construct.
Oh, this is interesting.
Okay.
First thing to learn today, what is going on here?
So according to this should be a proper example. Const repository new ECR repository this repository. That's fine. And the properties basically should be, is there anything special about this repository? Scope is a construct, and the construct is basically just this, right? Where I am right now.
Yeah.
So
let's just quickly confirm that there's not maybe, let's just look at the code again quickly. Just want to double check if we don't.
So it's this, my build project repo. Seems very good. Let me just try to const ECR, or like a repo container repo equals new ECR dot repository, like that. This my repo, like that. And if I close this, it still complains.
This is interesting.
This if I do stack like this. Well, I can. So if I beam stream, so this is basically this is the beam stream stack CDK1. Correct.
Oh,
yes,
interesting.
Yes, you're right. You're right. No,
there we go.
Absolutely, that's the solution. Because
awesome. Let's put that on screen quickly for people.
CDK.
Yes, we that was that upgrade that we didn't do, or we did do.
So I didn't do it. There's a new version of it. Sudo. Because here's the thing. Last time I complained about, hey, you should version pin things, and I don't. And that's the thing. So, and we got the new version of CDK now, and there's also a new version of all the packages. So this is why it is. Yeah. So
awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin Rod.
We definitely need to get mugs that we can send people for these kind of things and say thank you.
Yes.
I will put that on our
PM install. So let me just update all the other packages as well. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. I was actually thinking it could be nice to get a nice little that ASCII title you do being streaming, and then on the other side put out 2 8-bit characters on a mug, and then we send that to people. Yep. But we'll have to figure out logistics, because I'm in South Africa in Cape Town, and Darko is sitting in Berlin, Germany. So shipping might be interesting. So on that note, who in the audience, where are you from? If you haven't told us before, we're always curious to see where people are joining from. while we get all the updates.
I guess you can did I install npm people? How do I check if my packages are installed? Because I see a bunch of warnings here. Maybe I could just run it again, stating that it has not. Yes, please always ping CDK versions in package.json. Yes, that's what I told last time, and I didn't do it. So, absolutely. You must install pure dependencies yourself. Oh, really?
We probably have to install all those other ones now for the application.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how do I force an update for these things? npm force updates.
Yeah, there's the equivalent
maybe if
of
I do package.json. Oh, sorry, in package.json. If I just change the things here, yeah. Maybe like this. See it 155, 156, like that, and then you know what? I'm just gonna remove this and just add them to 156 to all of them.
Okay.
So that will basically pin the versions to this.
It's a good time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome to live coding.
There was a global replace.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm just teasing. Darko is much better at VI and Vim than I am. I literally know the line edit command, the cut and paste command, and I know how to search and do global replace. That's literally the extent of my Vim knowledge.
I used to be smart with macros, and yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Hoykerten. Yeah. Oh, you are the I think I know who you are. You are the person. You actually are involved in the CDK CDK days for Germany, right? Is that correct? That's why you know all the things.
Yeah, awesome. We should at some point maybe get some of the experts on the show, and then we can definitely increase the quality of our coding. Because for me, CDK is still, I'm very, very new to it.
Okay, so let's see if this will work. Lib bin streaming, perfect. So going back here, yeah.
Already looks better. Awesome.
Thank you. Let me just fix this thing, and then scan on image push is true.
Do we not want to change that first bit to be this instead of stack?
Yes, this.
Cool. There we go.
Way. CDK happy hour. Yeah, German, exactly. So this gentleman runs the CDK happy hour. So feel free to share your link here in the chat if you want the people to check it out. It's a
chat won't work because remember we block the URLs. So
yes, I think I have
tweet it at one of us and we'll quickly paste it for you.
I have.
Have you got it?
Somewhere. Wait.
Cool. Yeah.
Because I have actually retweeted it a few times.
Okay.
CDK happy hour.
And for those wondering, Darko actually has a screen mounted above his other big screen. He's got a massive screen at home, and there's another one above that one. So it's not like he's looking in the. There we go.
I'm praying to the demo gods. So.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Oh, hey, Ospfilsa. Oh, you're from Kosovo. Oh, Germany. There we go. A lot of Germans today.
Nice.
Okay, so back on track, I guess. We have basically created a repository here, which we're going to be using as our repository going on, where we're going to be pushing our container images that we build using our pipeline. That's kind of the first thing we need for our ECS cluster to work. Now we need to create that ECS cluster first, right? Not the service. All right, we need a cluster. So how to get started with that? And go to here, ECS, and then overview. I think there was going to be a great example of how to do a cluster. There we go. We need a VPC. Okay, so again, like last time, we do npm install ECS.
Just quickly for those, I'm going to paste the reason why the show is called Bean Streaming. For those who are curious about that.
Yes.
It's me and my dad jokes, basically.
So just
Oh,
edit
yeah.
the packet JSON and pin the version as well, if I can.
I've almost had Darko drop the call on me once. Because just to explain to those, for how dad joke works is that if you get no response, it's a fairly good dad joke. If you get groans, it's a very good dad joke. And if people go like, "Get the hell out of here," and then drop the call, then it's the perfect dad joke.
I once did a very interesting dad joke to my sister, and my sister was like, "Are you sure you don't have kids?" Anand, Vim plus Tmux config. I can share my Vim config. It's horrible. Well, I can share my Vim config if you want. I actually have a Git repository on that. I don't have my Tmux configuration there. So if you want, let me just get the link. It may be missing some things. Last commit was a few days ago, but it's there. So right now, if you are interested in that GitHub page, so there's all my plugins. I'm using actually NeoVim, so mind that as well. Okay, ECS cluster. Now we need to create a ECS cluster here. Let me just move a few things here because I want to make sure this is nice and clean. So we need to create a cluster. First thing we need for Elastic Container Service is we need a cluster, or basically a place where our container is going to run.
Yep.
I think we've discussed that we're going to do this in Fargate. So just to make it easier, so we're going to have it all running on Fargate. Should be fine, right? We won't provision EC2 instances. Maybe you can
So
explain
just
what it
quickly
is.
for those not familiar with Amazon ECS or Elastic Container Service, it is the service that AWS launched in 2011 or 12 to run containers at scale and also do some orchestration around them. So it's actually long before Kubernetes came out. And specifically, you create a cluster, and the cluster itself will have resources to run your containers on. Now, initially, that would have been your Amazon EC2 host, so the normal VMs you use for whatever other apps you're running. You would spin those up, and they would have the ECS agent on it. It then integrates with the Docker agent to then spin up containers and run them for you. And that was great until you have to start patching massive fleets of operating systems and keep them up and running, do capacity planning, etc. So then we brought out AWS Fargate, which is a service that allows you to use a task definition. And a task definition is, think of it similar like a Docker Compose file where you can define between 1 and 10 containers with various configs. And then you say, please take this, run 5 copies, and I want 2 CPUs and 3 gigs of RAM each. But there's no host involved. So you specify the resource requirements and the quantity, and we take care of it in the background to get you that quantity and keep those number of instances running. So no operating system to maintain, no patching, no capacity planning. You just say, I want this run, go.
Exactly.
So that is what we'll be doing with our service.
So one thing I need to create here, I need a VPC, right? I'm going to create a VPC or a virtual. What did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K HDMI? High definition?
Get it?
Oh, no,
HDMI.
HDMI. Wow.
Yes. I warned you.
That is terrible. Okay, let's create a VPC while Yoda is here. HD.
Yes.
So const VPC, or actually let's call it my VPC because why not? New EC2 VPC, and I'm just gonna do this and call it my VPC. So nothing special about my VPC. It's just gonna be a bare bones VPC. I'm gonna let CDK handle all of this. So if for all of those CloudFormation folks out there, this is how you create a VPC in CDK without 85 lines of code. So here I'm just going to do the following. My VPC. So I've just specified that my cluster is going to be present in this VPC here. Okay. What else? What do we need? We don't need to add capacity because we're going to be using we are going to be using Fargate. So if you want to add capacity, you can actually okay. It took a moment. It's not. I didn't see my screen changing here. Why is my internet not? Wait, am I back to Wi-Fi? I'm not. Why am I on Wi-Fi? Wait. Is something wrong with my internet? Come on. Oh, laptop.
Well, your video and sound seems to be in sync and all good.
That's the thing. So I think my Wi-Fi is taking precedence now. Okay. So let me just disconnect Wi-Fi. My audio is coming from a different computer. That's the thing. So well the other thing is coming from a actual physically connected laptop to the stream. So it seems to be turned off. Let me turn off my Wi-Fi because something is happening. Okay, I think it's better now. Yeah, it's better.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Cool.
So we need to create a task definition, right? Yeah.
Apologies for a second. I am going to have to switch out my light because I've been recording this morning already and the first one is flat. But continue, Darko. I will be back in a second.
That's fine. So if one of the things we need for our container to function is we need a task definition. So we need to define a task that's going to be running within our service. So basically we can use the exact same thing we have here on screen. All of these things will be relatively sufficient. So let's actually create a task definition like that. I can just copy paste this thing here. So like such, cool. And I'm gonna not call it task def just to stay more online. I'm gonna call it web app task def. Cool. So I have a new task definition. I need to create a container here. Now, let's see how this container looks like. So here it says which image to take, but I want to make sure that let's see, how does this work? So add container. What does this method do here? So if I go to, that's EC2 task definition.
So
method task.
What we can do is we can actually, there is a public, we can literally start with, let's say, an engine X, or if you want to do something more interesting, I'll go find us a nice funky one. But you can start with a public container, just as a starting point. The reason is then that'll be your starting task definition. And then what we can show is as you connect your code build and your code pipeline job that then does the deployment for you with a built-in job, it'll actually increment the task definition number with a new container and then deploy that for us. So
okay.
I know I could literally just start with Engine X.
I think there's an example here. The ECS one, the image one, it will take Amazon ECS sample. So if I do this one, basically, if I copy paste this like that.
And yes, OSP plus FLSA7 streaming setups that do tend to be a little bit more complex, especially if you're doing live coding across multiple systems. So, for example, my setup consists of a Windows PC where the camera and the mic is connected, and then I actually have my Mac laptop from work where there are other things and multiple sessions, and it gets interesting for various reasons.
For sure. And like this entire thing here, I'm streaming from, well, actually my camera and my mic and my screen that I'm looking at is connected to this. We use StreamYard as a service, and then I use my second laptop to code because I like coding from Linux rather than from Windows. So it makes things easier to an extent. Okay, so and finally we need to create a service, and think of it as a. So when I was first taught ECS, people told me there's three things you need to know about ECS. There's a cluster, there's a task, and there's a service. So your task is the thing that runs your containers. This is where your container is actually executed, where your code runs. This task sits in a service, and a service you define how many of those tasks you wish to execute and which types of tasks. And then finally, this task sits this service sits in a cluster, and cluster is basically just a collection of compute resources that can serve that said service. So basically what we have done here, create a cluster, create a task definition that will actually create a task afterward. And now we need to create a service here. And if we look here, this service is just a simple, I'm going to call it differently.
So just quick clarification there. So the task definition defines what it is you want to run, and the actual service then uses the task definition to start up X number of tasks.
Correct.
Because remember, part of what the service does is it keeps a certain number running. So if you've got, let's say, 3 tasks defined, or 3 copies you want to keep running, and you go and kill off one, then the service will make sure that it brings another one up. You can also just run a task on its own to completion, which is useful for once-off jobs or batch processing or things you only need to do once.
Correct. Now, one thing I need to figure out here is how do we set up Fargate here? There is a way to do it. So it says here in the documentation, launch types database versus okay. Use the ECS task definition to, okay, so we've made a boo-boo. Yep. So it's not EC2 task definition, it's actually Fargate task definition.
Yes, they do differ there.
They do differ. So that should be fine. Perfect. So in essence, if I would run this right now, this would create an ECS cluster, repository, a task definition, and the service. Right.
But for the service, we have to specify how many copies still.
Yes. So let's have a look at the service. So if we go to ECS, Fargate service. We have actually also did a problem here. It's not an EC2 service, it's a Fargate service. See the problem of copy pasting. So Fargate service, like that. What are the properties?
Oh, we've actually hit that at deployment time as well because it wouldn't allow us.
Exactly.
You will.
So there's two things you have to define on a service. That's the cluster name and the task definition. And we have already defined those things. Now we want to enable the desired number of tasks to keep running at this service. And that should be just, so if we do task, a desired, right? Desired count, let's call it 3. Why not?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Cool. And this would run now. Now, there's no load balancer in front of it, so we would need to create an elastic load balancer in front of this so it can serve traffic to this setup. So I think that's the next thing we need to do, right? So we can just have a simple setup here, and we're going to go for an application load balancer. And for you, those who have been following, there's one thing about our APIs. So if you can see here, right here, that we have 2 elastic load balancing modules. One is V2 and one is V1. It's basically because the old version for classic load balancer is just elastic load balancing, and the application load balancer version 2 had to be called version 2 because APIs need to be consistent, have to be forever. So this is why, in order to keep legacy support, we basically couldn't add the same features of our application load balancer to the existing API set. We had to create a new version. So that's how it goes. So let's have a look. We need to install this module. So if I go back to here, and again, the same procedure, npm install elastic load balancing v2.
Cool. And just remember to go pin it in the package file.
Absolutely.
Because we want to try and do best practices.
Yes. I promise.
So just quickly,
this is all down, this is going to be more best practice than it is right now.
Yeah. So also just to make people aware of the fact we do know that there is a provided CDK abstraction that can do all of this for you with, I think, like 3 lines of code. Yeah. We specifically don't want to start there. We want to start through showing what all the different building blocks is, and then we go on to the more advanced usage of CDK where you use abstractions. And also we'll probably play with Copilot at some point, because Copilot is the new CLI tool that allows you to do this much quicker and much easier than setting up things by hand. We can maybe do a quick segue on Friday where we just use one of those and then just show how quick you can do it before we continue with this to get our pipeline set up properly. Yeah.
Sure. I think next time when we join, we can play a bit. I have not had a chance to play with Copilot. Did you try it?
I've not played with it locally. I've watched a couple of videos on it, and it looks like really nice to get started quickly.
Okay. I mean, I've did play around with the what is it called, the construct library for ECS for a Fargate service, like 2 lines of code, and that's it. 3 lines of code, and you get a proper, basically whatever we're doing right now, minus the pipeline. But that's no fun. So we're trying to make this entertaining and talk about CDK for anybody who's interested in CDK. And also, by the way, feel free to ask questions. We are here talking tech, but we're also happy to answer any questions you may have. Think of it as a more active AMA. So, or ask me anything. So load balancer, right? That's where we are at. So we have a load balancer, internet facing true. That should be fine. Okay, is there like a great example for ECS? Let me just have a look.
Yeah, because load balancer, just quickly how it works is you create a load balancer that has got a listener attached to it on, we have to indicate which port and protocol it's listening on. And then it needs to be able to send traffic somewhere, and it uses a target group to do that. So a target group is responsible for knowing which instances or IPs to send traffic to and if they are healthy or not. So we'll need a load balancer, a listener, as well as a target group as a minimum to get started.
Did I set it as, it's not these. Oh, I need to do this. I need to import it. I'm just wondering where it is.
Yes.
AWS Elastic Load Balancing V2. There we go.
Awesome.
Elastic Load Balancing V2. Like,
Cool. While we add to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out details on the screen quickly on the schedule for the show. Specifically, what you'll notice is that we are currently streaming on the official AWS channel. If you aren't watching us there, you might be watching us from one of our personal channels. So both Darko and myself do stream on personal channels as well. Give us a follow there if you're interested, because like I just said, we don't always have the ability to stream on the official AWS one. And we do things on our own as well, hopefully as entertaining.
yeah. So the things we do outside of is similar to this, or we maybe focus to a specific technology. This is more of a where we kind of talk together about a specific topic and how it should be done while also building something. So it's not always just me; it's also Cobus as well. So it's a combination of it all. So
I politely asked Darko this morning if he could do all the driving today because I've got a 2-year-old that's going through terrible twos, and I've got a 7-month-old that's busy teething. So I did not have a lot of sleep this weekend, and even with coffee, I don't think I'm qualified to drive the keyboard today.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this over. Why is this not accepting? Not elastic. It's ELB v2. Sorry, so yeah, it's just being good. Application load balancer like that, and this, and call it web app ALB, and then some properties. The properties.
No. Call it bean streaming. We need definitely wanted bean streaming ALB. Yes, we need to know it's ours.
Bean streaming ALB. There we go.
And I'll just put it out there. You don't have to do it now, but you know that you can put emojis in your names for resources in AWS. It makes for a very colorful console.
Can you? Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, today I learned. So
I'll give you a hint. My chef server had that little pan with an egg and a piece of bacon in as the part of its name back in the day.
Of course, yes. It does it. Yeah. Mr. 41 Wolves, feel free to ask all the lame questions. We are here. We have lame jokes, so if that's of anything. However, let me actually pop this on the screen as well.
Yeah, this is a good one.
How does CDK interface with something like Amplify, which seemingly sets up your serverless environment for you? I'm not sure if CDK has does CDK have interaction with Amplify at all? Can it create Amplify things? I think
not as much, but I do believe in the background, Amplify actually does use CloudFormation to do, obviously, because that's the default way we create any infrastructure
so
services.
You can actually create Amplify applications through CDK. So it's kind of you play this abstraction game again, where you can actually create the entire Amplify application through CDK. So it's perfectly possible to do this. Now, this module is actually currently in experimental. So make sure that if you're using this, that you understand that some things may not work and things may change drastically as you use it. So version pin, like yours truly, and also be aware that there may be a lot of breaking changes. So maybe next time we can do some Amplify with this. I mean, it's a hot topic talking about CDK and Amplify as well. So, but it's absolutely possible, Mr. 41 Wolves. If you want to deploy your application, your Amplify application, completely through code, you can do it through CDK.
Well, we've got that blog. Maybe next time we move your blog to Amplify. I don't know if it's on it yet. Because we did mine last time.
It is, but we can do it. We can do it again. We can do it through CDK. Why not? I did it manually completely, so like a pleb. Okay, so where did I stop? Elastic load balancing v2. Yes, I created a load balancer right now. But I need to create a listener, right? I need to create a listener on port 80. So if I do like this, const web lb listener HTTP, let's call it like that. New ELB v2 application listener, then this, and then let's call it being streaming HTTP like that.
We should call it dad joke listener. But then you'd pipe it to dev null.
What is the thing we need to define here? We need to define a port, not port 80, and there is one more thing that we need to define.
Definitely the protocol, which needs to be HTTP.
Do I need to define protocol as well?
What is a default to HTTP, and then you
Look. Okay. Wait. There's a better way. It's actually doing it differently. So instead of creating a whole new object here as a listener, I'm actually gonna take the web LB like that and do a add listener like that, and then the prop is gonna be bean streaming HTTP, and then I'm gonna just define some properties, and those properties will be
Okay, doing an anonymous method.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of instantiating it and doing it that way, I'm gonna basically just use a method called add listener of the method available within the application load balancer object. I'm just gonna do that and yeah, open through. That should be fine. Cool. So we have added the listener now on the load balancer here. Now, what is important is we need to add targets to the load balancer.
Yes.
If you see here, there's a listener. Actually, adding the targets to the listener. So you have a load balancer, the load balancer has a listener, and that listener has targets. And the targets in this case are going to be our containers from EC2. So if I see add targets here, one of the things I can do here is go to listener and check out the add targets like that and see what are the properties, right? So we can do a bunch of different things, but what is important is the targets. It's application load balancer target. Now this is actually implemented by Fargate service, right? So we can use this interface to add it. So in essence, this would look like the following. So if I take web, do I have a listener created? One step back. See, I may need to add listener as well. Application listener. Okay, I need to give it a name. So because I'm going to be referencing const web like that, and then I can do web lb listener add targets. Let's call it web app targets, or actually web app ECF Fargate targets, right? Complicated naming standards. And this, and going back to this part here. By the way, somebody suggested to me that I add a little bubble on the screen that kind of shows my keystrokes as well, because I tend to do a lot of with the Vim. Not sure if that would be interesting or not, but yeah, it's also possible. Port.
Well, we can go the StarCraft route and show you the APMs.
APM, right?
See how many actions you perform.
I think I've installed something. Key, screen key, yes. So if I would do this, actually it will only follow, as you can see in the right top corner, only the modification keys. But yeah, so Mr. Meszaros. I've actually pasted my NVIDIA NeoVim configurator files in the chat before. If you were not here, let me just do that here. Oh yeah, Hanir. Hey Hanir, you're still waiting for my video on my terminal and video setup. Yeah, that's coming at one day. I promise that. I know, but
so there's so much time in a day to record and stream.
Yeah, exactly. Targets. Targets.
Cool.
Targets. 1 second. I want to see what is the.
Yeah, because we'll talk target group. Yeah, so we still have to create some target groups.
So the targets need to be, and targets here are actually going to be what is our name of the service. So it needs to be the service name. It's going to be web app ECS service. Cool. So web app ECS service, like that. Did I do it correctly? I did not.
I don't think so. No, remember, you need to create a target. You need to create a target group. That's what it's looking for.
Web LB.
Remember, the ECS cluster, what will happen there is the service, as it brings up instances, is configured to interact with the application load balancer and target groups. So it'll tell the target group, hey, listen, here's a new task that's running. Here are the details of the task. The task group then goes and checks. It says, yes, service is healthy and it's running. And once it's healthy and running, it then tells the load balancer, hey, send traffic to this guy.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do here. Basically, I'm using
Mm-hmm.
so I have the load balancer, the listener here, right? So I've created a listener
Yeah.
here on line 93. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the method called add targets to that listener.
Yes, but remember, add targets needs to be explicit. You need to go first create a target group. So we need to instantiate that, and then we're
No,
going to
no.
SOS.
So here, basically what it does actually, the way this would work is that you can just point it to something called a target group. So, or here it is. If I look at the properties, one of the things that not this one. Sorry, oops. It's I'm looking for the add targets. If I go to targets, application target properties, targets here is an application load balancer target, and which can be an Fargate service. So I'm pointing it basically to a Fargate service like this. But I've done something wrong. So one moment. So web lb listener add targets. Did I do it correctly?
So then what I would expect, given how you normally define an ECS, a service, is if we go back to up to our web app ECS service, there we would have to either point to a target group or to the load, well, probably to the target group and load balancer. Because the ECS service definitely needs to know about if it's telling a target group about new instances or new services that come up.
Yeah, so most likely, give me just a second. So web lb web app targets. So now this may work, because I think this is the only thing we need to create here. The only thing that's not being addressed here is my container repository. So basically, if I would try to create this, maybe we can try. So
Well, let's see what it creates. I'm curious to see how this works and how the abstraction is done with the various components.
There are some abstractions here that you don't have to worry about. So basically, my understanding here that is it will actually add those things as targets to the load balancer. So CDK deploy.
That'll actually be nice.
We already have something deployed here. So we have some infrastructure already existing out there. So we're going to basically just add to it. So it's going to do an update to this. And there's going to be a whole bunch of, there's a construct with mine repo. Oh, there's a construct. Okay. Wait. My repo. That's one. Aha. I named two things my repo, of course. My ACR repo. EC repo.
That's super interesting. It's the first difference then for me between this and not the first difference, but one of the big differences. With Terraform, the naming is per resource type. So I can have a code repository called repo as well as ECR repository called repo.
Yeah. No, it has to be different here because basically that's how it can logically distantiate the two. So apparently it's the same. It's the thing. Now it may be different for different languages. I don't know. But I think, you know why is it different? Because it uses those names to throw errors. It uses those names as for CloudFormation. It creates custom resources. It was not custom resources in CloudFormation, which have to have unique logical names, and those things are. So the error I see here says just under the command container web app container doesn't have any points defined. So let's actually go over here. So where is?
Well, we fixed that. We've got another fun question around what's your opinion on mixing Terraform and CDK. I'm biased there because I used Terraform for I think 5 years before I joined AWS, so used it quite extensively on quite a lot of projects. So the thing there is, we always say use some form of infrastructure as code tool, use whatever makes sense and what is fits the skill set that you have. So if you've got a good use case for mixing the two, definitely. For example, you might want to define the base infrastructure, like let's say your inside your dev testing and production account, you might define some, let's say, build pipelines, some application load balancers, etc. Do that in the one that makes sense for whoever's setting that up. So, for example, you could do that in Terraform or with CDK. And then for each team that then creates their own infrastructure, if they want to use Terraform or CDK, let them. It all depends, because trying to force the team to use the tool that you want is one of the easiest ways you'll figure out that they'll simply not use it. So no issue with mixing the two. It all depends on what skill sets you've got available. Cautioned with, if you've got 50 teams using, let's say, CDK, and you've got one new team with one developer on it who wants to use Terraform, you might want to reconsider, because if that person then leaves, you are stuck with stuff you can't use. So always figure out what makes the most sense. And classic answer, it depends.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to make a banner for us for that because that one's going to be used so much.
It depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm missing here, the container web app container doesn't have any port defining. So we need to call the add port mappings to this to basically define port mappings for our container. As Mr. Hoger said here, use CDK-TF. Yeah, there's a new feature of CDK actually made by HashiCorp, is the ability to generate Terraform code with CDK. So if you want to use a generic programming language that is JavaScript based or Python or Java or whatever you would like, whatever is supported, and if you still want to use Terraform, you can do so. So it's the ultimate democratization of infrastructure as code. So we need to this container. So let's call this const web app container, like that. We're gonna do web app container add port mappings.
Oh yes. But you should be able to do that in the definition itself.
Apparently, it didn't work here. So
that'll be on the container mapping level. So that should be, because when you create a task definition, you add the containers one by one. So there should be a way for us inside that task definition to use an array of container definitions if we wanted to go that route.
So what I've done here is basically I'm adding a container to that task definition by specifying an image and a memory limit. Now I can do port, but for some reason it doesn't like it, right? So it says it's not defined. So maybe there is a better way to do this. And I keep getting messages. Stop it. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but I don't know how. So I know that if I run this port mapping interface, I need to define a container port and a host port. So the only thing I need to do here, in essence, is just a container port. So if I do like this, and I think I have to do new, or how does this work? I need to create an interface here, port mapping, right?
So quickly, just for those who are not familiar with what we're trying to solve, is when you run a container, there are multiple networking modes it can run in, which will depend on then how you access it. Because you could run it on, let's say, port 80, but that's not the port that runs on the host because of bridging networking. If you did host networking, whatever port you specify for the container is the same one that runs on the host. And when you get to Fargate, the container itself actually makes use of an elastic network interface to assign an IP directly to the set of containers running inside the set of containers. We can get into Firecracker and what actually happens under the hood a bit later with Fargate. That's a long discussion.
Okay, so I think this works.
So that's what we're trying to figure out.
So I've added basically the on line 81 and through 83. I basically added a container port to this container. So I'm not sure why wasn't I able to do it here. I could have done it here. Okay, container port. All right. I could have done that as well, so that's fine.
So just quickly for Darko, you're going to have to help me pronounce that. Meszaros. If you want, I'm busy working out when my streaming schedule is going to be. That's exactly what I'll be doing, is figuring out CDK, because I know bits and parts of it, and I've used it for small projects, but I also know Terraform really well, and I want to start using CDK for it. So have a look at my Twitch channel. It's literally Cobus Bernard. Let me put that in the chat over here.
Also, Mr. Gawk GB, we're building modern application through CDK. So we're continuing basically our build of our CDK template to build a ECS or container-based application with all the bells and whistles, pipelines and whatnot. So the goal is to not like make a small demo application, but to make a fully fledged thing. Because here's the thing. People told us, hey guys, you make these small Hello World applications, that's fine. But, a lot of people can do that. So let's try to build something actually complete. So let's see how this works.
Very, very specifically, what we're doing is we're building it with, for example, the load balancer and everything inside this one repo, because we want to show you the natural progression of, I started with one container and we're going to move to two containers. And at that point, you have the discussion around where do I put the shared infrastructure? How do I handle this? So we're going to hit all of those problems, and intentionally, and it'll be interesting to see what we come up with.
Yeah. And we're doing this intentionally slowly. It's not just because we like code, but by doing it this way, first of all, you get to see us code. Secondly, I get to learn some new things. And we also get to talk through it. Because if I would just take a template that already exists and deploy it and just talk over it, it's not the best thing. So here and expect this to go over a few episodes of these streams, because we want to build this and expand this as we go along. And to be honest, we don't know what this is going to be at the end. Basically, we have not tried this. We're literally just now, like how they call it, shooting the wind, trying to see, will this work? And yeah. So what it says now, it's asking me, hey, there's a bunch of IAM policy changes that are going to happen. Are you okay with this? And like any good sysadmin, of course I am. I
Yes,
trust
close
myself.
eyes, say yes.
I know a person, he was a sysadmin back then, and he was this amazing, he knew a lot of scripting languages. So he would script in VB script to Perl to whatnot. And he made this amazing script. Like back then we didn't even use Git or any kind of code repository. So there was like this network share we used, and his scripts were like the things of magic. But he never used them because he was just too scared that they would break things. So he would make a script that would completely like migrate a domain to a different domain, right? But he would never use it because he doesn't trust himself. So that
gets very close to the joke around with DevOps comes great. What was it with DevOps? Great power comes great ability to break at scale, and then that's where you add the extra O and you turn into DevOps.
Yeah, DevOps. Yeah, basically, coding or infrastructure as code lets you do things at scale, but it also lets you screw up at scale. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important that you know what you're doing, and luckily it's relatively easy to come back from that unless you're deleting some persistent data, and that's
Yes, backups. We'll get to that, but I mean, just for those watching, the whole idea also behind the show is the reason we show you how things work and specifically don't work is when you know how something breaks is how you become an expert. Because you can know that these are the 50 ways it doesn't work, exactly how does it work, and that's how you can, when you have to infer how something else will work or something else, how you build up that skill.
exactly.
I mean, a good example here is that if you ask me about SQL Server and optimizing tables and a lot of that, I spent like weeks and weeks working on things in past projects on that. So, and a lot of that was learning how it doesn't work, and that's where a lot of the value lies.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is fun. Again, we might not do this every day, every stream after another, depending on what the people like to see here. We might interject with some other topics so it doesn't become boring, but we definitely plan to kind of build on this and finish it as we go along. So again, we're going to be continuously building on top of this. It's called the Bean Streaming app solution thing, whatnot. There's a GitHub repo for anybody interested as well, which I just made paste again. So if you are interested in kind of seeing what we do and checking it out afterwards, because we like to make things open source and transparent and in my horrible code. So feel free to.
And also, just quickly, the comment by Kanher about being nervous to close eyes and say yes because he accidentally wiped out 120 firewall rules, and then the following comment saying yes, you should be able to quickly roll back because in theory, if you did small commits, and yes, you did make stuff up like that, because yes, it does happen. I mean, I've locked out an entire user base of 500 and something thousand users once. What you would have done is you literally say, well, just rolled this change out, revert the commit or go fix the commit, push it out, and it rolls out again within a few minutes. So and the thing there is, it's one of the things what did they say? You only learn when you burn. When you break things and you have to fix them quickly is when you learn the most, the quickest.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not saying go break things in production for fun, but yeah.
Yeah, don't break production, but make your production not breakable, or how do they call it, anti-fragile. So try to implement a lot of those things, and absolutely. So small incremental changes. One of the things when I talk about operations and general the cloud, make sure every change you make is reversible. So as much as possible. So small incremental changes need to happen, which can be reversed. So. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people like, hey, you know what? Let me just completely re-architect my infrastructure as code and just hit the deploy button. And then when you have to roll back, it's impossible or it's very complex.
Oh, I've got a lovely story for you around that one.
Yeah,
I once worked with a developer, and we had a long discussion around using queues, and he at that moment had just learned about using back pressure on APIs. So everything was built using back pressure, not using queues. So we had a long discussion, and as a team, about 3 or 4 of us felt that we want to go the queuing route, and he was adamant, no, we are still sticking with back pressure and all that. Any case, that was how the conversation ended. The rest of us proceeded to go to a conference for 2-3 days, and when we came back, everything had changed to use queues.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it was done by hand. Yeah, it was.
That's a problem. That's a problem. You cannot do those things. I mean, you have to implement change. Don't get me wrong. Nothing worse is when a system is stuck in the past because you ain't doing anything. So one of the other tenets of operations, especially the well-architected pillar of operations, is to constantly look for opportunities to improve your operations and in general everything you're doing. So look for things you can kind of tweak and modify and do things, but make sure those things are not ridiculous, right? So they don't break things completely or are unable to roll back. And our deployment was successful. I like seeing this little lovely
Awesome.
green
So
check
one
mark
thing I
here.
wanted to ask for that I forgot that we should have added is, can we add an output for the load balancer URL? Because we need to get that
Indeed.
URL, and going into the console doesn't feel like a nice way of doing it. Let us do that. Outputs.
So new, one of the things I can do, new CDK, CDK. So it's actually part of the core framework output, and then I'm gonna call it ELB URL, and then it's gonna be, the property is just value, and the value is gonna be, what is the load balancer name? WebLB dot something. I'm not sure what is the name of the public DNS.
Yeah, it's not URL, it's got DNS in it.
Load balancer.
No, it's not.
Is it listener? Is it listener?
Double check that. For some reason, it rings a bell now for me.
I did it a few days ago, so I should have known this. WebLB listener. Is it DNS? No. Public IP. One moment. I have a thing here that I've done before. CDK ISG load balancer. People from my Twitch stream remember this one. So if I go to vimlib, this one, streamlb load balancer DNS name. Okay. So
there we go.
value is WebLB load balancer DNS name. Perfect. So what I've done right now is I've basically just created an output. So when you create this on line 116, so this will generate a CloudFormation output telling it, hey, please throw this out as an output. So if I would save this right now and npm run build. By the way, the keys you see up there are mostly connected to tmux. So anything I do, Control Alt things. So that's why you don't see all my keys, which is probably good if you see me typing my password.
I only saw Hunter 2.
Hunter 2, yes. Like, by the way, if I'm not sure if everybody knows the Hunter 2 joke. So that's a bash.org, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a treasure trove.
Bash.org is a collection of
IRC
chats, yeah. And Hunter 2 is this password joke. So we can find it. I mean, it's very well known. So
I can almost guarantee you that somebody is probably turned into a curl command that you can just curl the random conversations. Because my other so for those not familiar with the IRC days, there was a point where what happened. So it was pure text-based chat. It's still going, by the way, IRC. And there was a point where everybody just went ASL as soon as they started chatting, which was for age, sex, and location. They want to know like who they're talking to. And obviously, being the internet, you can mess with people. And there's also this famous bash.org one about the guy with the wizard hat. I put on my wizard hat, and that one is hilarious. Basically, someone's trying to chat him up. And do a text-based sex chat with him, but what he does is he pretends he's playing some Dungeons and Dragons game, and he like casts spells and does things, and the person just leaves the chat. It's
Oh, by the way, I didn't know this that you don't have to run npm run build. Is that something relatively new? Because to be honest, I run npm run build because of muscle memory. That's how I learned CDK in the beginning. That you had to compile your TypeScript code, but maybe that
That's
changed. Like
interesting.
that. Fair point. Thank you very much. I put my robe and wizard hat on. But
Yeah,
here you
that's one.
go. We have the output here right now, and it's just the DNS name. It's not the full. There's no HTTP in front. So, but let's try. I'm not sure if this will work. There's a. It works. Whoa! It's running PHP.
Magic.
It's running PHP, by the way.
Nothing wrong with PHP. Most of the internet runs on PHP.
I
Nobody
know.
just wants to, say
Nobody
it.
wants to admit it.
No, it's one of those things. Program language. Just remember, PHP. Nobody wants to code in, and Java's still slow, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's yeah.
Most things are written
No.
in Java, so no. Well, PHP I think is everybody's first language, or at least everybody's first programming language. At least in my generation, a lot of my friends, everybody who did anything first from, let's say, not the first Hello World, but the first thing you made money on, or the first thing you did for a project, was usually PHP. At least I did it myself as well. So
No, I started with Java 1.4.
no Java.
Giving away
I
my
tried
age
to
now.
get into Java, but then I saw the class names, and then I gave up on it.
If oh no, Java, fond memories. If you want to have some entertainment again, go look for the industry interview question, the fizz bubble question, where
Yeah,
if it says yeah, that one. Go look for the enterprise Java fizz bubble solution, which has the iFizz bubble message factory, and it is fun.
okay, I will check it out. No, I've actually tried to learn Java back in 2013-ish because everybody was doing Java. I'm like, okay, let me try to learn it. But I was always a fan of very simple languages, or let's say languages with less scaffolding around it. And Java has a lot of scaffolding for my taste, and so I kind of just like never got a chance to work with it. I'm not saying it's bad. I have no opinion on it because I don't know, but yeah. So, back
Here we
to the real
go.
world.
There's the one I found. That's the
Oh, that's
entertainment
the
for
one.
the day. Definitely go look at it afterwards. It is
I will.
very
I will.
entertaining.
So, as you can see here, we have our ECS cluster here, and this ECS cluster runs currently 3 tasks. Now, these tasks are running the base container, as you can see, the sample container. We're gonna actually push our own container to this one as well. So that's gonna be the next step. I think that's gonna go down to the next episode once we start doing deploys and talk about how to do deploys from code pipeline to ECS, because it's a different approach. There's this, you have to pass it this JSON file with all the information on it, or there's a whole lot of different things. It's not just a matter of updating the image on the repository. There's also a few other things. So this is where we're gonna go
Well,
discuss maybe some blue greens and
it's
stuff.
actually just I think it's actually just 2 steps. The first one is 3. Create the JSON file, add it to the artifacts for code build. Sorry, I need to show my fingers, and create a code pipeline
Correct.
step for it.
Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
basically that's something we're gonna cover in the next episode. So in the next episode, we're gonna have a fully functioning web application with a single service. We have to create a web application, something being streaming. So we have to think about that. But hopefully by the end of the next episode, we will have a fully functioning, ready for production web application where you have your entire pipeline where you can commit your application code and it's going to be pushed to production for consuming. Now, right now, it's in its state. It's running currently a Hello World application, so there is no application connected to this container, to this cluster. So we have a cluster of containers running, serving a Hello World application. We also have a pipeline which doesn't do anything. So next time we're gonna work on connecting those two and making sure they work. So, and basically then we can kind of make a small bow on top of it and saying, hey, this now kind of works. How can we make it better? So I think let me just jump back to the code and have a look at what did we do today. So just kind of
Let's quickly do a recap. And then, if all goes well, and by all I mean I get some sleep, I will be driving on Friday. So doing the typing. I'm looking forward to it.
So first thing we did, we created a VPC. We need a VPC because we're going to be creating our containers within our VPC, or virtual private cloud. thingy. So then afterwards, we've created an Elastic Container Repository. So this is going to be a repository where we are going to store our container images, which we are going to be building in our pipeline. And if you recall, last time we just built a pipeline that stores our Docker files in our application and is going to be used to build said images. Afterwards, we create a cluster, ECS cluster. This cluster will host our Fargate tasks, or our containers basically, for our application or our service. Then we created an ECS task definition. This is where we actually define our task and what container and how it's going to look like for our web application. So this is where we pointed it to this hello world image, or the ECS sample image here, and we define something as memory limits and define container ports. And last but not least, on the ECS side, we created an ECS service. Now this service actually defines, hey, I'm going to run these containers on Fargate in this cluster, and I need 3 of them. So, and this is something we can modify. We can add also auto scaling here, etc. So that's also going to come in the next time once we start to fluff this up. And definitely last but not least is the load balancer part. So this is the consumer facing part. This is where your traffic is going to be delivered to your customers. Is we have created a load balancer with a listener, and we have pointed that listener to the targets part of that ECS service. So the load balancer here is actually going to say, hey, any traffic coming on port 80, redirect to these containers on this service on port 80 as well. So, and that's it. And for a little bit of color, we added a CDK CloudFormation output, which basically once you run your CDK deploy, it's going to pop up a really nice HTTP string here like that. And it just works. Perfect.
Awesome.
Just a dumb question. Is there a way to get a list of all created and available objects to delete after playing with this demo? Well, you can use AWS Nuke, but don't use AWS Nuke because it's going to delete your entire account. Because here's the thing. If you have taken down this entire repository that I've showed, or actually, which I'm going to commit right now, right? So if I do git add all, git commit,
episode 2.
Episode 2, right?
A New Hope.
So, 2.
Now I'm offending all the Star Trek fans out there.
Wait. Episode 2. It's not a New Hope. We need a better pun. A new.
Something
that rhymes with hope.
What's that other one? I'm trying to go for pipe and pope, but no, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. A new cluster.
But on that note, quickly, if you want to offend everybody, all you do is you say, use the Force, Harry, said by Gandalf.
So, by the way, so Mr. C. Bastinier, horrible pronunciations. So if you use this repository and you create this with with CDK, it's actually going to generate it all through CloudFormation. So if you just do this, CDK delete or destroy, it's going to actually...
There we go. We've got a name. A new code hope line. I love it. Here we go. Once again, if we had a mug to send out, I would send you at least 2.
Yeah. New code hope line. Thank you, sir, Mr. Kandir. And Mr. Kandir is actually a common visitor on my stream, so thank you very much. So if you do CDK destroy, it's going to actually delete all the resources and basically not cost you anything. So if you're playing around with this, you have tried it out, you're fun with it, you want to not spend money, well, and this is it. Now, in essence, this will not cost a lot of... Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, why not? And then basically next time we come up, it's going to completely rebuild everything. So, and which is the whole point, right? So if you want to have environments you can kind of spin up and spin down, this is a great thing. Although the only cost on this thing right now, don't hold me by my word, is going to be the load balancing cost that exists and the 3
NAT gateways
for the VPC and the 3 tasks running right now. And that's it. So those things are going to be basically your entire cost on this. But still, you don't want to spend a lot of money. Just hit that CDK destroy button and let this basically delete the entire CDK stack. So it's going to delete it all. And next time we come online, well, before we come online, I'm just going to CDK create. So it kind of generates all these things for me once more. And this also brings me to an important part. Don't keep your repositories in the same stack as we do, because you want to keep your persistent storage in a separate stack. If you want to delete your compute / how would you call it, presentation part or a business logic part, you can actually delete those things and spin them up at any other time while still retaining persistent storage.
But I mean, we're definitely going to hit that because we will add a database of some kind to our service at some point, and we will talk about how we start splitting that out. So this will be an evolvable.
Yeah, I think the goal is that we have a specific separate stack, a separate CDK stack that creates our databases, that creates our repositories, and that, I don't know, something else. So it's going to be some persistent storage stack that's going to exist, and we're going to basically expose the information from it somewhere and kind of gather those things up here as well. So that's the idea.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there we go. There you can see the NAT gateways. They're going.
All the things. So if I would go to this thing here, and if I go to CloudFormation, come on, you can see that it's deleting.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to see resources, resources, you'll see all the 57 resources created here. There's also a function here, by the way. A Lambda function exists here because the scan thing for ECR, it actually uses the AWS CloudFormation custom resource. So it's not an existing resource on CloudFormation. So it uses a Lambda function to create that.
Yeah. Interesting. Nice.
Yeah. So if you couldn't do that with CloudFormation, well, you could, but it would take some effort. So it's easier to do it with CDK. So yeah, it has all these things here, and buckets and keys, and also encryption by default. So all the stuff. IAM policies, and you can definitely do this manually in CloudFormation, but it would just take so much more effort. Than what we did here. And you can remember the idea with streaming series where I did the same thing with CloudFormation. It took me 6 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea here is that we'll get to a point where we are able to abstract this into stacks that we can then have teams adopt. Because the whole point is you want to make it easy to do the right thing. And by building all the best practices into the modules and stacks, it's just easy because then a development team can go, I want a database. You say, well, add it there, use that, and it'll have encryption, backups, password rotation, etc., built in. And also, if you add new features to it, that's a nice way to get those rolled out as well. Because otherwise, you have to go do it on 50 services. Once again, I learned that the hard way.
Yes, exactly. And also a few other great, just looking at the chat here, a lot of great things people said. Never deploy untested code. Absolutely. Just try to avoid that for sure. Right. That's very good. Also pin your versions on CDK. If you're watching this on record, you might have seen me break the stack initially because I had two different versions of modules running. One is 155 running locally, and I downloaded the latest version of ECR and it just didn't work because compatibilities. So when I say version pin, I mean package JSON. There's a Vim package JSON file here, and basically you have all these things here that should be version pin, and you can see that I'm using 156 for all of these things. If I would basically add a new module now, if I would basically install a new module, I want to make sure that I install it with the same version. And if you pull this,
So on that note, can we just add another one here and then go npm install?
Yeah, you can basically. I can just do. But when you do npm exit please, npm install, when you do this, it automatically writes it to the package JSON file.
No, I know that, but what I'm thinking is might be to make sure the version pinning is just one of my workflows. I tend to add it to the whatever mechanism I use to manage my package.
You can also do it like this, right? Just add it like this. And if I would save this now and run npm install, it will install AWS Lambda as well.
So that's an interesting question to me. We don't have the Lambda package here, but because that abstraction creates that Lambda for us, is that why we don't need it? Correct. Because CDK does that on the server side.
Actually, so because a Lambda is one of the dependencies, so if I would vim lib this one, for example, if I would go here and copy this one and just AWS Oh, it's not here as well. Okay, cool.
No, that's why I'm curious. Because if we're creating a Lambda, how does it know how to create it?
So it doesn't create a Lambda per se. So it creates a CloudFormation custom resource, which in essence uses a Lambda function. So it doesn't. We're not defining a Lambda function. The core part of CDK is creating a CloudFormation custom resource, which uses a Lambda function for that. So that's kind of the way it works. Yeah. So yeah, it's
Denny.
a lot of abstractions, and sometimes that is bad, sometimes that is very good. So I am a fan of this. So all right, so I guess while this thing deletes, if there are any other questions from the audience, any suggestions, anything you would like us to cover next time or talk about the next time. Again, we don't have to do this every week. We can kind of straggle on with this. This is going to be one of the topics for now, but we can also add new things. Yeah. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so
okay.
It's not a dependent, not first level dependency. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, should be impacted.
There we go. Okay. That's nice. So the other thing, I mean, obviously, tell us if you like the format of the session or if there's anything you want us to change. Like, I'm more than happy to bring more dad jokes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and also check out the GitHub link as well. The GitHub link is can I put it on screen? Yeah, like that. So check out this GitHub link if you want to check out this code as well. So it's there. So yeah, can you talk about JSII? Okay, so that's an advanced topic about CDK, but I'm not really, I'm not very confident about talking about it right now. So JSII is basically an interpreter that makes all the other languages possible. So that's my understanding that CDK uses JSII to basically interpret any other language that uses CDK. Well, it gives the ability to do what CDK does. So, but I think there's some other more competent people that are able to talk about those things. And I promise next time we talk about this, I'll bring more information. So if you're interested to hear more about JSII, I'm very happy to talk about it. But right now, I'm very light touch on it. So yeah.
On the to-do list for reading.
On the to-do list for next time.
I wish I could get to at the bottom at one point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's very
cool.
At the bottom. Apparently that's very nice. That's how they introduce new languages. Basically, they just interpret them to JavaScript at the end. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that's a very neat feature. Okay. I guess we can slowly bring this stream to an end. We're not going to wait for this thing to delete because it may take a bit more. Thank you.
Well, that's the VPC now. It should be very done.
Yeah.
Actually.
Want to have a look? Let's just have a look.
But
this seems like we're deleting the stream. Oh, there's another South African here. It's gone.
Okay. Nice. Pretoria. Up there where it's cold. It's today we're actually going to have some rain today, so it's only 19 degrees Celsius for today. Yesterday was a lovely 25-degree day.
Wow. Today is cold in Berlin, 22. So 22 Celsius only.
And just to clarify, I'm in the middle of winter, Darko is in the middle of summer.
Apparently this year is colder. So this year should be actually colder on a global scale because apparently there's more sunspots or something like that. That's something I heard. But I don't know. I can feel that it's colder in Germany than last year. Last year was horrible, 42 degrees. We had a couple of days in July. So it was not a proper German summer. This year is much better. I think we didn't have more than 31 degrees, so it was good. Okay, cool. Awesome. I guess the deletion is complete actually. So if I would remove this thing from the thing, you can see delete this. The CDK stack has been destroyed. Basically, we have deleted the stack. We're gonna delete the stream right now, or we're gonna go off the stream. Thank you everybody for joining. We will see you on Friday. Friday we go again, and we're gonna talk a bit more about this or some other topic, but it should be fun. Okay.
Awesome, yeah, and thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
Yeah.
Let's hit the big red button.
Yes.
Bye.
And broadcast. Bye.